Well, we'll come back to our subject. How does God know good things? How does God know goodness and evil? He is all knowing, right?
What did he decide? He decides what?
Yeah, he decides what is good. Can God decide a bad thing to be a good thing? No. So then there must be some guidelines. Basically what God says good is good, but will God arbitrarily say good? If God would have said adultery is good, then adultery would have been good.
That it conforms with his nature, he says.
Yeah, that's good. Good and bad are decided by the character and the will of God, the two things. God never acts against his will. God never acts against his character. And so all his will is in harmony with his character, but good things are decided or bad things are decided by his character. God is truthful, therefore all lie is bad. God is loving, therefore all hatred is bad. Yes. God is light, therefore darkness is bad. Then certain things by his will. For example, in the Old Testament, Jewish people were not allowed to eat pork. In the New Testament, God allows everybody. That has nothing to do with his character, it is a matter of his will. He can decide who to eat what. A Jew could never wear a cotton and polyester mix, because two kinds of yarns could not be. But we are all wearing it because we are not governed by that. So that has nothing to do with God's character. That's something to do with God's will. Usually when something has a moral nature, it may have some more to do with his nature, his character. If something is amoral, like eating pork or not eating pork, has nothing to do with morality. Circumcision and no circumcision, it doesn't have anything to do with morality. They are the will of God. So God decides what is right and wrong, depends upon either his character or on his will. And man cannot go contrary to them. Yes, at any time he cannot. But my question is, God knows good how? Consciously. He knows good consciously and he knows evil intuitively. That's a different conscious knowledge and intuitive knowledge. Intuitive knowledge is by virtue of his omniscience. But goodness he knows by consciousness. I'm conscious about something. But then my intuition says, don't go today. I'm not able to do it. He's not there. I'm not going to meet it. That is nothing. There is no basis other than my feeling. The only difference is my intuition can go wrong or right because I'm a sinner. By the intuitions of God is always right. So whatever is evil, God knows intuitively. God does not taste it. God does not, has to do it to know it, but intuitively God knows it. God's knowledge of good and evil is always perfect, whether it is conscious knowledge or intuitive knowledge. It is always perfect because you cannot improve on it. But our knowledge need not to be perfect because man lost that perfect knowledge on sinning. So our knowledge today is very much qualified. It is on many issues it is incomplete, it is imperfect, and even when it is correct, it is not exhaustive. It's not exhaustive. Some things we just accept it. 1 + 1 is equal to 2. Why? You're all students of science and engineering, you know, and I'm very poor in maths, to be honest. But 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. Why?
Because it cannot be anything.
1 plus 1 is 2 because the value of 1 is 1. If 1 had the value of 2, then 1 plus 1 will be 4. But 1 has the value of only 1. Therefore, 1 plus 1 is 2. And that's simple logic. That's simple logic. I mean, you don't have to be a mathematician for that one. You know. Yes. So certain things are true because logically they are true. Certain things are impossible. How smart you are in engineering, you can never make a triangular circle. Can you? You cannot make a triangular circle. Why? Because it's an impossibility. It's impossible for God to sin. Why? Because God, the very concept of God, He is holy, therefore He cannot sin. Just like say that you cannot make a triangular circle or a circular triangle. You cannot. Because in idea itself, concept itself, that is, illogical. So for somebody to say that God to sin is illogical. Because God is holy, He cannot do anything that is unholy. But man, though he was created holy, because he has lost that holiness, sinning is very easy for him, very easy for him. Usually, a piece of meat on a buffalo, does not get rotten. But a piece of beef, buffalo in your freezer may get rotten. Why? Both are a piece of, a kilo of buffalo, in the buffalo doesn't get rotten, but in the fridge it could get rotten. Because the buffalo is living. That life is transmitting, therefore it cannot get. Only if the buffalo die or the part of the buffalo die, then only rottenness. Yeah. So in another sense, when man was in good relationship with God, when he was keeping what God said, the problem of sinning does not come. The moment Satan came and said a different interpretation about that tree, Adam was a silent listener to all that. Adam was with Eve when Satan tempted her. But the conversation they carried on. He just listened to it. But at the end of the conversation, he decided, I will eat it. Because I want to be like God, not in the sense in which Eve thought. Adam knew that. Because God said, the day you eat, you will die. Then when Satan said, but you will be like God, that means that I will be living, but in a dead state, away from God. I will be separated from God, but I will be living. That's what I wanted. I am independent. I no more have to worry about a quiet time. I am free. If I want, I will take. Eve thought I am going to be immediately transferred to that all, glory and all that honor and all that God is having, and the angels going to come around me and say, hey, leave, all that thing. Poor Eve thought. Adam knew what Satan said. So Bible says that Eve was deceived, Adam was not deceived. Deception, yes. Deception is not anything peculiarly related to women. No, men are also equally deceived, but on that issue, he was not deceived. He deliberately sinned. She also deliberately sinned because she wanted to attain that state where she knew that is not God's desire for her. That she knew. But anyway, she thought that if I can be a God, why not? So, man has lost that perfect holiness and knowledge and righteousness. The Augustinians, who is Augustine? Okay, the Augustinians say that man after sin has become like God and like Satan. Like God in that it was now self-possessed. He was self-possessed. Only God has true self-possessed, knowledge and everything. Man until sin was to know that if he eats the forbidden fruit by, by faith. But now he does not know by faith, but by his own experience. He no more has to believe that if I eat it, I'll die. I know it by experience. Man was created with the true knowledge, but that true knowledge was analogous. Man knew what knew not in quantity, but in quality. In another sense, whatever he knew was true, but not the same amount of knowledge God had. Only God had omniscience, the whole knowledge. But now man is able to know by reference to himself. He became like Satan because man now possesses consciousness, conscious knowledge. Man is conscious of his sinfulness. Immediately after eating the fruit, it said that now man is conscious of something God has given him. He is conscious of the fact that now I am a sinner and the father of a sinful humanity. Immediately that. That's what Satan also having. Satan knows consciously, I rebelled against God, my destiny is doomed. All the demons, when Jesus Christ came, what did they say that? Have you come to punish us before? Then they all know that their destiny is there. But they wanted to play the extra few hours there, that's what. Satan consciously knows he is a sinner. He knows what his doom is, but somehow he is trying whether he can change it. Or at least make a havoc before he goes. So man is now conscious of his sinfulness. Before he didn't have the consciousness. He knew if I eat I will die, but he has no consciousness of death because he hasn't eaten it. Unfallen man knew God consciously and evil theoretically, but fallen man knows sin consciously. But the unfallen man's knowledge of sin was imperfect. To the fallen man, awareness of God is repulsive. Man and his wife hid from God as soon as they heard his voice. 1 Corinthians 2:14 says, the natural man does not receive the things of God, for they are foolishness to him. There are two ways of knowing sin. One, as a sinner knows it, and two, as a saint knows it. What is the difference between? I have never taken liquor in my life, not a drop of liquor in my body. But I know drinking liquor is bad. I don't know it as a drunkard. I know as a person who never take it. I have never tasted potassium cyanide. But I know what will happen to me if I take potassium cyanide. I don't know it, by my experience and all that. No. I know it by what others have said it. So said that evil, theoretical knowledge of evil is very good. Practical knowledge of righteousness is very good. If you know righteousness and goodness only theoretically, it's not going to do much good. But sin always. What will happen if you tie a rope on your neck and tie somewhere else and jump down? Theoretically, I know that unless your feet stands on the ground, you will die. You will hang yourself. Let that remain as the theoretical knowledge. But some people have tried. You ask them, if you get a chance, you may not probably, because they may not go to the same place that we go. Yes. Somebody asked, do you believe Judas will be in heaven? He said no. So, Judas repented. Doesn't say that. Yes. But Judas will not be in heaven. So, then the conversation went on and he asked, so you won't meet Judas in heaven? No. He was unbeliever. Maybe you can meet him in hell. God forbid that, but you could meet him in heaven and ask him why he did all that he has done. We may never get Consciously to know God is good, consciously to know evil is bad, consciously to know good is good, consciously to know bad is bad. But most all our young people today wanted to consciously know evil. Some people say that, I'll get saved when I'm 60 years old, but until then I wanted to enjoy all the sins of the world. Actually, is there fun in enjoying sin? I don't think there is any fun in sin. Whatever sin I had sinned, they only made me miserable, to be honest. So miserable. Even though they are not major sins, but whatever sin I have done, they made me miserable. So how can people enjoy sin? Some people enjoy sin. My doctor once told me, I shared the gospel with him. He said, he said, Mr. Thomas, listen, whatever you said is correct, I know. But my problem is I enjoy sin. He said, I commit adultery with all the nurses working here as long as they are consenting, and I enjoy it. If you tell me they are bad, I say it's bad, but I enjoy it. I like to do things that I enjoy. So that's the problem. When a person starts enjoying sin, he has gone beyond repair. Any sensible person will say sin is bad, but I fell into it and all that kind of things. But when a person is so proud and he wants to continue to enjoy sin, there is something wrong. Man was created with an inclination and a moral disposition in full harmony of his will with God or with God's will. Man's inclination and disposition were so holy that there exists no moral friction or conflict of will with God's will. But then now man has sinned deliberately. The inclination is not to do good, but the inclination is to do bad. There was a time man was standing like this tree. But now if he falls, he'll fall this way. If he has to fall that way, there should be a greater force that will pull him that way. Anybody who got saved, the love of God or the purpose of God, the Holy Spirit pulls him that way. If natural man is given the freedom to believe, not one person will believe. That's why election comes. Not one person. Inclination was duty, and duty was inclination. Unfallen man never felt the law or the will of God a burden or an infringement on his will. Like the holy angels, the will of God was the delight of God. In a perfect moral condition, law and will are one. As in the physical nature, the law of nature, gravity, and the forces of nature are one or identical. No force of the nature works against another force. Never. No natural forces, none of them will work one against the another one. No, they all go together. To happen a tsunami, the other natural principles has to help it. Otherwise the tsunami will not work. It's always like that. So that's the same way. When man was in a perfect condition, his moral law and his will were one. He was only inclined to do that which was correct. But now that man is a sinner, the conflict has come. Because we have the knowledge that God told us not to eat it, not to do it, but we have the inclination to do it. It can be seen in children very, very, very interestingly. 2-year-old child is going to put his finger in the electric socket. The mother said no. So what does the child do? Look there. I have seen it with, look there and will smile to make the mood of the mother change and then go like this. No. See, this knowledge knows that the mummy does not want me, that's why I look there and change it. But in eating the rice or food given to the child doesn't have to look. No, it doesn't have to. Because the child knows that is the law of the mother, that is the will of the mother, there is no friction. This always comes. Husband-wife relationship, in everything it comes. In our relationship with God, all the more. 1 Timothy 1:9 says that, this is a very interesting verse, the law is not made for the righteous man, but for the lawless and the disobedient. No law is taken into consideration righteous people. Are the speed limits posted for people who never break the speed limits? No. The speed limits are posted again and again and again, for whom? People with the tendency of breaking. That's why it's. The jails are not made for people who never break law. No. Jails are not made as, guest house. When some righteous man, gets tired, he will come and sit there. No. Jails are made for housing people who break law. So Bible says no law is made for good people. The 10 commandments are not given for good people. Adam didn't have the 10 commandments. It had only one commandment. Thou shalt not eat. Now we have 11 commandments, right? The 10 commandments and our 11th commandment is thou shalt not be caught. That's our 11th commandment. You can violate all 10, but make sure you are not caught. So that's we operate on that. Yeah, the smart ones, they have 11 ones. No way. The godly needs no law, for his very disposition is holy. For whom is the speed limit made? For those who always drive with utmost concern for the welfare of the fellow man? No. There are 3 kinds of drivers. One group of drivers always look at the speedometer. Always. They are the legalists. 70, 69, can never go 71. There is another group who always look for police. They always look for police. There is a third group who doesn't look for police or the speedometer, never. They always look for people and hindrances, children crossing, animals walking, any pedestrians there. Their eyes are always on the road because they wanted to drive without causing any problem for anybody, fellow human beings or even animals. They are the right drivers. If your eyes are on the speedometer or on the police, there is something wrong with you. When you drive, you care for people. You may go at 10 miles or you may go at, the speed laws are not ethical laws. They are not ethical laws. Anybody who breaks the speed limit is not a liar or a thief or nothing. At best he has to pay a fine of 500 rupees. In another sense, you are driving somebody with a heart attack, or you got a call from your neighbor saying immediately, come help me, house is on fire. What are you going to do? Worry about the speed limit? No, you're going to go at 180 kilometers an hour. If a police stops, you just keep going till the police come after you. That's what he said. You come after me. You stop there and then the police comes and see that I'm coming here. Police won't say anything. If he's a sensible police. But if he's he will say that, okay, you can make 500 rupees. We'll settle the matters later, No. So the law is never made. The 10 commandments, we will not have 10 commandments when we are glorified. No, we won't have 10 commandments. Even the first 4 commandments, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all your heart, will not be there because we will be doing that naturally. Right there, that's what we are doing. It's all here. It's all here and now, So God gave only one law to Adam and Eve, not two. Don't eat that which causes your death. But look, man wanted that. He wanted to be separated from God. Yes. When law was given to rebellious man on Mount Sinai, the giving of the law was coupled with the plenty of peals of lightnings and thunders. When the law was given, the whole mountain was smoke and thunders and lightnings and all. Shad thinks there was no lightning and thunders in heaven when God talks with holy angels. When the holy angels come, there will be no peals of thunders and lightnings, because this question of sin is not there. So the positive wholeness with which man was created consisted in an understanding enlightened in spiritual knowledge of God and things of God, and a will wholly inclined to them. Should suggest the following rational proof that man was so created. 1. The perfect state or the maturity with which man was created assumes it. Man was not created as a little child. Adam was not a little child. Why Adam was not created as a little child? God had to create another woman to he take care. So God created Adam, a mature man. And for that reason, all God's creation were, the trees were mature with fruits. The earth was a mature world. If a scientist was asked to estimate the age, probably would say 1,000,000-year-old. Because it had everything it should have. How old was Adam when he married? He was only half a day old, less than that. But was he only half a day old? No, he was a mature man. At that time, he may have looked like at least 100 years old. Very mature. So in another sense, God created everything in the perfect state. Everything was in the perfect state. So the perfect state or the maturity with which man was created assumes that he had, the sufficient understanding of, what he should not be doing and what he should be doing. The idea of the will as a mental faculty implies a con-created holiness. Will necessitates inclination. It is like saying that circularity is a part of circulation, or triangularity is a part of being a triangle. Will or a reality only when the will is inclined. If God to create a certain faculty which at the instant of creation was uninclined and under a mind either good or to evil, it won't be a voluntary faculty. In other sense, if the will was not able to operate independently, then it won't be a will. Man had the capacity to operate all that God had said. Nobody is in need of a force or a pull. But to do the sin, he needed definitely a pull. Without that, he cannot. So Satan came in. Even today, that we are sinners, actually, we don't need anybody's help to commit sin. But we who are redeemed, saved, to commit sin, we need a push either from the flesh or from Satan or from our friends or something. Otherwise, what is natural for us is to please God. No believer could sin naturally, because sin is unnatural for believers. But sometimes we see people sinning naturally. We wonder how could he do. Most probably he is not a believer, so he could do it naturally. Because the Bible itself that the believer does not sin. If anyone continues to sin, he is not a believer. Impossibility. The new birth, the new life and sin are diametrically opposed virtues or vices. You cannot, sin doesn't go with that one. It is determined and inclined and evinces thereby that it is a will. If it is destitute of inclination, it is involuntary, and involuntary will is a solecism. That means a grammatical error or that which is observed. Such a thing cannot exist. An involuntary will. See, an